All right, welcome back to MH Blackwell. As we talk about things oh man, I got to get used to doing this because I'm so used to talking about boxing. But welcome back to the channel. Thank you for subscribing to MH Blackwell. If you haven't, please click the link, the subscribe button. But what we're going to talk about here in the context of politics in the United States right now with Kamala Harris and Donald Trump running against each other for president. You have issues like Sonia Massey and the shooting that took place in Springfield, Illinois, and things that happened to her family. Another young family member also was life was ended, in a similar situation. Just a lot of stuff going on. But I want to talk in this video about the bedrock of it, because listening to all the back and forths, one thing really stood out to me, and is that Black conservatives really seem to be winning the day in the mindsets of a lot of voters, a lot of people that are talking about the subject matters going on. And you have, now that Kamala Harris is in the race, you now have a big influx of, a lot of Black women, liberal Black women and men that are really a lot more energized about the election. So within the community that I am most interested in, you see the liberals really, the people leaning to the left that are really starting to, get behind Kamala. And then you have the people that I think, the conservatives that are still looking at Kamala like she doesn't do enough or hasn't done enough for the Black community. So why should we deal with her? Right. All of that stuff going on. I've talked about that in several other videos. And many of these things are related to the concept of race and racism in the United States. But what is the kernel of it? Right. And when I say the kernel of it, I mean, like, what is like the most essential thing? Do you look at what what you're doing as an individual? I had a very good friend that is in Chicago. I was at he's my brother-in-law, my cousin-in-law by marriage, partner at Deloitte and Touche. Very, very intelligent dude. Very, very obviously partner at Deloitte and Touche. Very, very well paid. That was talking about Kamala and how he needed to vote for Kamala because we don't it may not be in his best financial interest, right? It's more in his financial interest to be somebody that's low taxes and the rest. But, we can't turn around. We can't go back. Right. Where there were other people that, were disagreeing with him. But the one thing that stood out to me, and this is the point of the video for me, is that when we talk about ending and solving the problem of racism in the United States and throughout the world, that there's never really a discussion about the response, the key issue, and the one thing that has to go away before any of this can be solved. And I've only heard like one person say this several years ago, and it was really, really, really controversial. The problems that we have as Black people or as non-white people will always be there as long as the most racist word in all of the English language is erased. And it is going to take a lot to get there. Now, if I had to guess, if you had to bet you that you did not know what the most racial word in creation is, you may say the N word, right? If you're Nigger, Nigga, you may say that would probably be the number word that people think of when they say, when you're talking, you can't say that. And that's the most dangerous word. That's the most harmful word. It's really not. The hardest word, the most difficult word is white. It's white. That's the word that has to be eliminated from people's language before any of these problems can be solved. And I'm going to tell you why I believe that. And it won't make a difference with politics. It won't make a difference in sports. It won't make a difference in business. None of the areas of human activity will ever be non-racial until the concept of whiteness is gone. And that word is gone. And I'm going to explain to you why that is the case. Because if you just oppose and you just look at white and non-white, but you can look at black people as the non-white in this scenario. Everybody that comes to the United States wants to be white. They want to live. They may not want to actually be that themselves, but they want to be treated the same way that white people are. And Europeans, when they come over here, they're not Italian. They're not Italian. They're not Irish. They're not Swedish. Those are their nationalities. But when they come to the United States, they band together in what is called white. You also have the same word, the same concept, but used in politics is called Western, right? Western civilization, Western history. What is the West going to do in relation to Palestine, in relation to China, in relation to Russia? What is the West going to do? Well, what is West? West is the same group of nations that spread into the Western hemisphere where we are and took over for the native populations and grouped together and referred to themselves as white people, a grouped people that had an innate superiority in law, religion, and any other area that everybody else was subservient to them. Now, the construct of, and that would be referred to as Western supremacy or white supremacy, that has shifted over the course of years. And there's a lot more understanding of it and a recognition of it. However, the underlying cultural control, the underlying effect on people's self-esteem, the political decisions that they make, the way they view the world is still through the lenses of white people and what white people think of non-white people. So the better we are, the less we act like what we think our group typically acts, and the more we behave like them, then the more accepted we are in society. So I just think that it's when we always look at, okay, we got to get rid of this concept of race. Right. And race being a social construct, like something that was interesting to me is, like the concept of, what is a black person? Right. If you have a white parent and a black parent, what are you? OK, you're mixed race. Right. Or you have two black parents, you're black or you're Asian, whatever the case is. However, there is absolutely positively no white person on the planet. It is a social economic group that is the most powerful in the world. And until they dissolve that and they start referring to themselves in nationalities and they don't have that group think that ultimately comes into play in the police departments, in the banking industry, financial industries, and every other, in entertainment, in religion, in the interpersonal relationships between people. As long as the first thing that you see when you see a person and you look in their faith is, oh, he's white. That perception that you have is of them and what they think of you and the power dynamic that they have is going to affect the way that you behave, the way that you see the world, and the way that you interact with people that are similar to you. One of the books that are out there about this that I think is a really, really interesting is Frantz Fanon's Blackface White Masks, which talks about looking at the relationship between the colonized and the colonizer and looking and saying, OK, well, the gaze of the colonizer affects the view and the self view of the colonized. Right. So you struggle as hard as you can to adjust for the negative stereotypes that you know that the colonizer has, right? Or the white person has. And that affects and it causes all kind of stress and tension within yourself, within your family. It's only going to be when that concept is gone and we are no longer like, we don't need the dream, right? Like when Martin Luther King said, I've got a dream of little white boys and little black girls holding their hands and all of that stuff. Look, as long as that one little girl knows she's white and that other kid knows he's black, there's going to be a dynamic and a tension in between them that are not truly between themselves, but between the concepts held and imposed upon them by their respective communities. So until we solve that problem, just like, one of my favorite scholars, Neely Fuller Jr. says, until you solve the problem of race and racism, nothing else is going to get solved, because that's the bedrock of the society that we have. When we separated between Western, which is, again, just a euphemism for white, that controls the way that people see the world. And we see a world in a very Eurocentric point of view. You think like a European, you speak like a European. Until all of that melds into one group of people, the problem is going to be there. So this is just me shooting the stuff with you, but when is the problem going to be solved? The problem is going to be solved when the society hits rock bottom. I don't think it's going to ever be solved, or that hurdle's ever going to be hit, as long as things in the United States and around the world are functioning. Just like an alcoholic or a drug addict or somebody that, is abusive to their wife or in an abusive relationship. Many people do not solve the real core problems until they absolutely have to, when it's between, let me figure out what I'm doing with this drink and this drugs, with this drinking and these drugs, or otherwise I'm gonna be sleeping on the street. Until Americans feel like if we don't solve that problem, we're all going to be sleeping on the street, the problem is going to continue, and we're going to continue to put Band-Aids on it, right? So to me, like when you hear me say that I don't know if I'm going to vote, it's because I'm really looking at that real core issue and thinking to myself that, at the end of the day, I have to focus on myself. I've got to get my personal life together. I've got to take care of my family. I've got to take care of my kids, because that is what I need to do to solve the problems that I have in my life. Those societal problems, I don't know if they're ever going to be solved I don't think they can ever be solved by an individual. There's going to have to be something cataclysmic that affects all of the people involved, when it's in each person's interest to drop the way that they see the world, get a new view of the world brought on by necessity, not because they just feel good about it or they think it's right or wrong, but one brought on by real necessity that reshapes the way we see it and allows us to see each other as human beings without all of the different labels that society, governments, parents, and all that put on each other that really affect how we see each other and our ability to interact every day. But anyway, I just wanted to shoot the SHIT about that. Please let me know what you think in the comment section. And with that, I'm out. Deuces.